comes from Akhil Agrawal. It reads, Acharya Ji Pranam. As soon as virtue is being known as something good, it becomes evil. He's quoting from Lao Tzu. This was chapter 2. Now, from chapter 3 he quotes, therefore the governing of the saint is to empty one's mind, substantiate one's virtue, weaken one's worldly ambition and strengthen one's essence. Acharya, what is meant by substantiating one's virtue? If substantiated, would these virtues not become evil? All right. Akhil has seen a contradiction. The audience must first understand where he is coming from. Lao Tzu says at one point, as soon as virtue is known as something good, virtue becomes evil. This is quintessential Lao Tzu. If you know love as love, then there is no love. If you know truth as truth, then there is only falseness. Good old Lao Tzu. So Lao Tzu is saying, as soon as virtue is known as something good, it becomes evil. And then at another place in chapter 3, Lao Tzu is saying, therefore the governing of the saint, read the governing of the saint as functioning of the saint. Therefore the governing of the saint is to empty one's mind, substantiate one's virtue, weaken one's worldly ambition and strengthen one's essence. The latter half of the verse can be ignored because it doesn't deal with what Akhil is curious about. What does the verse then say? For our purpose, it says, therefore the functioning of the saint is to empty one's mind and substantiate one's virtue. Even between the two functions of emptying one's mind and substantiating one's virtue, Akhil is obviously more interested in the words that relate to substantiation of virtue. So now do you see the paradox that befuddles him? He is saying, on one hand, Lao Tzu is saying, if you know virtue as virtue, virtue turns in evil. On the other hand, Lao Tzu is saying that the saint functions to substantiate one's virtue. On one hand, you are saying, if you know virtue as virtue, virtue turns. On the other hand, you are saying that the saint seeks to substantiate virtue. So that's the disagreement that Akhil is seeing, and we'll go into it now. So, Akhil, when virtue is known as virtue, thought of as virtue, named as virtue, labeled as virtue, conceptualized as virtue, then you have lost it. Are you getting it? Obviously, no one would want to say that Lao Tzu is calling virtue as evil. What is it that Lao Tzu is terming as evil? The knowing of virtue. What is this knowing of virtue? We'll have to go into it. How do you know something? When do you say that you know something or somebody or whatever? You come across a man. When do you say you know him? You come across a man. When do you say you do not know him? You say you know a man when you have prior acquaintance with him, right? So it is on basis of a pre pre-existing memory, a pre-existing image, that you claim knowledge. Knowledge therefore always proceeds on recognition. It is never fresh cognition. It is never instantaneous understanding. Knowledge proceeds by matching patterns. You met that man earlier and your eyes took a picture of him. You see him again, and what do you do now? You match his face with the picture you already have in your mind. This is recognition. This has no originality. This has no authority. This merely has a followership. The present is being made to follow the past. The past has become the authority. There is no originality. You haven't really on your own, from some central, heartly principle, freshly discovered that the man is known. You haven't done that at all. It's almost like the functioning of a machine. It isn't intelligence. At best, it is artificial intelligence. That's how AI proceeds, does it not? So Lao Tzu is saying, when you know virtue as virtue, then that virtue is evil. Now do you see what he is pointing at? How do you know virtue as virtue? We know virtue as virtue in the same way we know a man as known. When do you say you know a man? When you have an image of him. When do you say that you know virtue? When you already have an image of virtue. Which means your heart is not really authenticating virtue. It's not your heart that is standing as a proof of virtue. The proof is coming from the image. The proof is coming from the concept. The concept has become the authority. The memory has become the authority. And in the little world of spirituality, the only authority is truth. Memory cannot be the authority. If virtue is virtue, then the certification must come directly from the truth, which is the heart. It cannot come from a part of your brain that stores data in time, which is memory. Are you getting it? So now, how do you call a man virtuous? You look at his actions and then you tally them with your pre-existing image of virtue. And if the two match and tally, then you say, this man is virtuous. This is not merely an abnegation of virtue, this is also an insult to your own power to really see, find, understand, and conclude. When you really can determine on your own, when you can really determine via the heart, why do you need to take the help of brain and its stored content? This is humiliating. Not only is it humiliating, it becomes the starting point of a lot of hypocrisy, bigotry, duplicity, and fraud. Just as you know in advance what is to be labeled as virtue, the other one also knows. Just as you know in advance that if a man is seen feeding crows or pigeons, you would call him virtuous, because that's the stored video, right? The virtuous man, so goes the label. That's written on his t-shirt. I am a virtuous man. And what is he doing? He is feeding crows and pigeons and sparrows or thoroughbred. And now you know who is a virtuous man? Who feeds crows and sparrows and pigeons. So it is very easy for anybody to fool himself and fool you. What is it that he has to do? Feed crows and sparrows and pigeons. He really doesn't have to go through the painful process of sadhana. He really doesn't have to dismantle his false structures. He really doesn't have to surrender to the original center. All that he has to do is perform some prescripted actions. Remain who you are, just feed crows and you will be called virtuous. Such virtuosity, Lao Tzu teaches us, is evil. Why? Because not only is this not virtuous, it is also claiming to be virtuous, and therefore it is acting as a substitute for real virtuosity. Say I am sick and 10 edible substances are kept on my table. I am looking for some medicine. There are 3 kinds of substances on my table. 1, the real medicine, which is just 1. 2, things that are not medicinal. Among these 2 things that are not medicinal, there again are 2 types, therefore taking the number of categories to 3. Among the things that are not medicinal, there are things that say nothing about themselves. And there are things that say we are medicines. So you see, you have 3 categories now. A, real medicines. B, non-medicines that do not claim that they are medicines. C, non-medicines that claim that they are medicines. Out of these 3, which one is likely to prove fatal? Category C. B is useless but not fatal. B won't help you or save you but won't actively harm you either. A is obviously ambrosia. So keep that aside. A is real virtue. It's C that Lao Tzu is warning us against. False virtue that pretends to be real. Now what would it do? What would C do? C is actually harmless in itself. It is just non-medicinal, but it is not poisonous. C is non-medicinal but not poisonous. It is just like B. But how is it different from B? It is claiming to be virtuous, which is medicinal. So what would be the effect that C have upon you? You will take C and you will assume that you have taken A. And now your search for A would cease. And that would be your death. Are you getting it? That is why Lao Tzu is calling false virtue as not merely useless but actually evil. That which it is not It is pretending to be. Therefore, it will not merely not help you, it would actually stop your quest to be helped. Had it just said, I am nobody, I am nothing, you would not have been harmed. Had it said with great honesty, I am not medicinal, it would have been nice of it. But it is not saying it is not medicinal. It is not even silent about itself. It is actively and loudly trying to deceive you by saying, I am the real medicine, which it is not. You have to understand the danger of falseness, please. Falseness by itself cannot harm anybody. Why can't falseness harm anybody? Because it is false. How can a thing that is false harm anybody? False, by definition, is that which does not exist. How can a non-existent thing harm anybody? So, falseness by itself is a mere shadow, a joke, and if you are in good mood, then a plaything. Falseness by itself is not harmful at all. The world by itself is not to be taken seriously. What harm can it do? There is no need to even renounce falseness because it does not exist. At the same time, the objective of entire spiritual practice is to stay clear of falseness. If falseness is so very impotent, weak and non-existent, why have saints been continuously warning against it? Seems strange, right? You are not being warned against some greatly powerful and dangerous enemy. You are being warned against something that has no existence at all. Have you never wondered what is going on? That which is really dangerous is not very dangerous. That which is not dangerous at all is infinitely dangerous. You have to understand this. If there is something that is really dangerous, then you can always summon a higher power to counter it. Satan is staring you in the face. You can always knock the door of God. Sir, SOS. The big bugger has arrived. And Satan might be powerful, but we all know how powerful God is. We have the great myths, the legends, the folklores, the beliefs. And we are drawing upon them. Just understand what we are trying to say. So Satan comes and he is extremely, extremely powerful. But still, it's not a matter of concern. Why? Because far bigger than the power of Satan is the power of God. Commonly called God in religion and in spirituality, addressed as the truth. So in religion you have Satan and God. In spirituality, you have falseness and truth. So you can always call upon God and say, sir, please take things in your hands now. There is an emergency situation. But what if Satan comes over, knocks your door, and you open the doors to find God, the Almighty, standing there? Now will you be saved? That's the problem. Satan, had he just remained as Satan, would have been incredibly impotent. Satan arrests you and totally devastates you because he never comes as Satan, he comes as God. It is in your gods that Satan lives. Satan does not dare to announce his real name. His venom lies in his power to deceive, not in his capacity to overpower. And these two are different. No evil in the world can overpower you. But evil has the power to look like virtue. And then you don't need to be overpowered. Then you surrender on your own. That's where you lose the battle. You don't even lose the battle, you don't even fight the battle. Who would fight virtue? And evil has come over to you dressed up as virtue. Do you need to lose the battle now? You won't even lose the battle because the battle won't even begin. Such a tragedy, such a tragedy. I want to stay with these words, The rest of today's session can be just spent in remembrance of these words. You don't even lose the battle. That's a tragedy. Battle fought is battle won. How do you then lose it? By not even fighting it. We are not even fighting the battle. Those who fought necessarily won. Fighting and winning are one. Who cares about the outcome? Fighting and winning are one. No outcome is needed. Our battles don't even start. Who would fight against virtue? Who would fight against a friend? It is in our friends that the devil necessarily sits. And there is no teacher in the world who is not helpless in front of friends. People come to me to talk about their problems. They start telling me about the parts of their life that appear diseased. And I constantly want to take them to the parts of their life they consider healthy. And they don't like that. They resist that. They say, no, but we want to talk about the problems. I say, no, let's rather talk about that which you think of as not problemed. They say, no, we want to talk about our enemies. I say, let's first talk about your friends. They say, no, we want to talk about disease. I say, no, let's rather first talk about what you consider healthy. They don't like that. They think they know. They think they know who their friends are and who their enemies are. And I'll be a liar if I don't confess that I don't usually get past their notions. People are always ready to get their enemies bludgeoned. Guruji, that one. He's really the mother of Satan, or the father of Maya, or whatever. To that extent, they are very ready to seek and enlist my cooperation. But the moment it comes to their liked ones and loved ones and friends, Guruji is helpless. In fact, if he tries to step upon their sacred territory, he becomes an alien. And it appears logical to the complainant. They say, it is my right hand that is fractured. I came to you to talk about my right hand. Why are you continuously inquiring about and examining and feeling my left hand? It looks and sounds absurd, right? Totally absurd. The doctor is fit to be in a psychiatric ward. And that's how most patients of spirituality also feel about the teacher. He does not know his job. He does not know what he is talking about. He might be well versed, but in my case, he is missing the point. Oh, he might be dispensing valuable advice to others, but he is totally missing to be insightful in my particular case. In my particular case, he is mistaken. I know that the right hand is fractured. I know where the treatment must go to. And instead he is looking in the opposite direction. He probably thinks too much of himself. Over smart guru. I know my thing. I know who is my friend and who is my enemy. What does he know? That's where all Lao Tzus have been badly beaten. No Lao Tzu, I say, can get past this one. It happened then, it is happening today. Are you getting it? What really is virtue then? Virtue is virtue when you do not even know that you are being virtuous. Does a saint ever know that he is virtuous? Never. That is the reason you keep reminding him that he is virtuous. You keep reminding him that he is virtuous and he wonders, what exactly are you talking of? I don't know what you're saying. You keep saying Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu. Huh? Who is it that you're talking about? Me? No, please spare me this burden. All right, you might talk about the abstract Guru, the principle of the Guru. But please don't say these things about me. I do not know where I come from. I do not know my own name. How do you assign me a name? Never have I known the definition of virtue. How do you know that I am good? The being of the saint is just his being. He doesn't intend it to be virtuous. From his side, it is neither virtuous nor evil. It is just his being. He is not even trying to be good to you. He is not bad, maybe. But if he is not bad, neither is he trying to be good to you. He is just being. Then why do you call his being as virtuous? Because his just being is beneficial to you. It is in your context that the saint is virtuous. In his own context, he just is. He is not virtuous at all. In fact, let me assure you that the saint is always mildly and sometimes a little more than mildly surprised when you shower encomiums on him. What, did you just say all those grandiose things about me? Are you sane? I'm talking to you and you are elevating me to some random pedestal? I'm talking to you. I want to relate to you. I want to come closer to you. And you are sending me off to the 10th floor. If I'm on the 10th floor, on the ground floor or in the basement, how will we sit close? But that's what you want to do. You want to label the saint as virtuous. The moment you label him as virtuous, he's gone. He now belongs to the skies and he's of no use to you. He cannot give you company. On his own, of his own, the saint just is. He is not virtuous. I assure you, he is not virtuous. He has no thought of virtue. That's what virtue is to you, a thought. And the saint has no thought of virtue. He is just being, he is just doing what comes really naturally to you. And the word nature finds respect, finds veneration, finds authenticity in the being of the saint. Otherwise, to you, nature merely means your latent tendencies. Only the saint is really natural. Only the saint is himself. It is his nature that he gives expression to. He does not seek to be virtuous. I repeat, he does not know what all these words mean. Compassion, joy, freedom, virtue, goodness, righteousness, morality, liberation. He has no idea. And you live merely on ideas. The saint has no idea of what an idea is. He lives in solid substance of his being, not in the inflated balloon of ideas. Are you getting it? Since he does not know virtue, therefore, his virtue is multifaceted and totally unpredictable. It is not planned, it is not chronicled, it is not repeatable. He does not know from where it comes, he does not know to where it goes. But you are looking for all these things, right? You want to know the origin of truth and you want to know the destination of truth. So when some particular action of the saint benefits you, you take that action as virtuous. Hell, he didn't design it to be virtuous. It just happened. You can call it serendipity. He was just being himself and it somehow benefited you. He didn't try to be of help. He is help. But you thought, in this particular instance, he was of help. So, virtue is the name of what he did in this particular instance. Please understand. He did not do anything out of turn. He did not do anything specific. He did not do anything in particular to help you. He just did what he always does. He is being himself. He is being natural. It is a matter of holy coincidence that whatsoever a saint does somehow turns out to be beneficial to somebody. God knows why. It must not be so. But it so happens. Even the saint is at his wit's end to know how come even his mishits fly over the ropes. He does not know that. He has no idea where the ball is coming from, where it's going to be pitched, how it would seem, whether it would reverse. What did he do? He just, you could say, slogged. And off it goes. And the saint says, this is my being, 6 times 6. Doesn't matter what I do. It is a 6. A saint is an absolute example of divine match fixing. It doesn't matter what the situation is. It doesn't matter who the actors are. It doesn't matter from where the players come and who the referee is. The outcome is always pre-decided. What is the outcome? Goodness. Place a saint anywhere, the outcome will be goodness. What else is called match fixing? Doesn't matter who the players are. Doesn't matter what the situation of the match is. Doesn't matter what is the name of the game. The saint is hitting sixes even on a hockey field. Give him a football and what happens to it? 6. And the referee says, goal. That's what makes it worse. And sometimes the referee says, ace. He is slogging at it as if it were a cricket ball. And what did it just turn out to be? An ace. So not only are the players inconsequential, even the name of the game is inconsequential. If the saint is playing, the outcome is always goodness, which you can also call as victory in the spiritual sense. So he didn't intend it. He was just fooling himself. Who else is a saint? God's fool, knows nothing, and yet goes about his business with utmost confidence. Like me answering your questions. What do I know? But how do the crowds look at the whole thing? The crowds think that the shot was pre-planned. They do not realize that it is natural for the saint to be victorious because the match has already been fixed. They think this is one particular way of serving an ace or hitting a goal or hitting a six. And then they call that particular way as virtue. That's how you name stuff. You look at something, then you come to conclusions about it, then you put it in your memory, and then the worst part of it comes. What is the worst part? You want to repeat it. Now, when the saint did it, it all went well and the result was goodness because the match was fixed. But what will happen when you will do it? Double fault. And then another double fault. And then another double fault. That's what Lao Tzu is calling as evil. That which you will call as virtue would end up as a double fault or an uprooted middle stump. And you would keep wondering, where did I go wrong? The other bugger just did the same thing. And the umpire went? Or? And when I do it, the only thing seen flying are the bails. When he did it, what went flying? The ball. Now it's the bails that have gone for a six. That's what. The saint does not know that he is good. Therefore, he is very good. You try to be good, you end up being worse than bad. So, Akhil, if you were scolded, did the scolding one know that the scold would benefit you? He did not. Maybe it did. Maybe it did not. He doesn't bother. He just did it. He does not know the outcome. He does not bother about the outcome. He just does what is right. How does he know what is right? Don't ask stupid questions. He just does what he does. He does not even do what is right. Had he had a choice to do wrong, then he would have needed to know the right apart from the wrong. But he does not even need to discriminate the right from the wrong because he has no choice to do the wrong. He just choicelessly does what he does. And when you choicelessly do what you do is the absolute right. So choicelessly, the saint may do things that appear to be wicked or evil, but even they would result in good. So does the saint do good things? No. It's the other way around. And this is something that would really be unacceptable to most people. Does the saint do good things? No. It's the other way around. What is the good? That which the saint does. Goodness does not authenticate a saint. Your standards of goodness will not authenticate a saint. It is the being of the saint that decides what is goodness. Are you getting the difference? You cannot say, these are my standards and benchmarks of the right, and whosoever conforms to these benchmarks will be called as Mr. Right. No, it's the other way around. The right is that which Mr. Right does. It's very absurd. I know why it would be very difficult for you to digest. It's almost like saying, when is it 4 p.m.? It is 4 p.m. when Anu walks into this room. It's not that Anu would walk into this room at 4 p.m. It's 4 p.m. whenever Anu walks into this room. Now this would be very, very unacceptable to you, right? This goes against objective thinking. This goes against standards of fair play. You say, let's have an objective criteria, and whosoever lives up to that criteria shall be considered a winner. This that I just said, the example that I gave with Anu as the character, would be called by you as a classic case of shifting the goalpost. You are saying you are shifting the goalposts to ensure that wherever the ball goes, it is a goal. Yes, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. The saint does not do good. The good is that which the saint does. How do you know good? Just look at the saint. Whatsoever he is doing is good. And that does not mean that you will find goodness in his actions. Goodness is in his being. So you cannot copy him. Sorry. And it is very, very illiberal and autocratic. Because you cannot assess him. It doesn't matter what he is doing. He is right. If you do not find him right, you figure out where you are wrong. This is unacceptable, right? This must be unacceptable, because if you just accept it, this would lead to a lot of social anarchy, chaos. This would lead to a total disruption of the normal order. So you must not accept it. But then who said that God is a thing of your acceptance? In general, the stuff that I just talked of must remain unacceptable. But the saint is a great exception. You'll have to bear that. Or if you may so like, you may go ahead and kill him if he is too much to bear. But even if you kill him, the problem is that obstinate Lao Tzus have a habit of recurring. They are like a chronic disease upon your healthy system. You use the strongest kind of steroids to suppress them, but there is remission. And you say, oh, the symptoms have again appeared. The disease is back. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavata bharata. The disease comes back. That's what Krishna said. From where Krishna is looking at it, it is called the birth of a prophet, the coming of. From where you look at it, it is called the re-emergence of a disease. A disease that you don't want to even admit. You want to live your life in man-made order. And Lao Tzu's are such great exceptions. They defy all man-made order. You want to believe in objectivity because for you objects exist. And the existence of a Lao Tzu is a proof against all objectivity. He says, objectivity is for fools. I alone am. Now where is the object? I alone am. Now where is the object? And if there is no object, what do you mean by objectivity? I am the one singular subject without any object. I am the one and only one. I am the thing and its proof. No proof of me exists outside of me. Therefore, I cannot be proved or disproved. Are you getting it? What is evil? Get that right. Evil is to take a part of a Lao Tzu's being as virtuous. When you take a part of his being as virtuous, then you want to take that part, assume that it is separable from the wholeness of his being, and then you want to replicate only that part. But there is nothing in that part. The magic lies not in that part, but in the center. But it is incredible to you that something can be wholly virtuous. Why is it incredible to you that something can be wholly virtuous? Because you live in dualities. Your definition of virtue necessitates the existence of evil. So you say something has to be necessarily only partly virtuous. When it is partly virtuous, the other part is bound to be evil. Wholly virtuous is beyond your conception. How can there be virtue without evil? That's what wholly virtuous means, right? Only virtue and no evil. You want to say everybody is partly good, partly bad. Therefore, you want to believe in virtue accompanied by evil. And what is a saint? Virtue alone. Virtue alone. Not virtue accompanied by evil. But you have a great stake in looking for evil along with virtue. Because that would sanctify your existence. Instead of trying to appear meditative, work and do something. I am meditative and I am working. Was this disconnected from the rest of the session? No. But when you would publish the video, then you would publish only the agreeable parts, not this part, right? That's what is called creating an artificial distinction between virtue and evil. This scolding that I just gave was as virtuous as the lecture I was previously giving. But you would think that the lecture was virtuous and the scolding is not. So when you would publish this video, you will edit out the rebuke. Is that not what you would do? That's what Lao Tzu is cautioning against. To you, I am saintly only as long as I am delivering lecture in the standard form. And when I do what I in between did for 10 seconds, then I am not saintly, right? Is that not what you say? To you, I am the teacher only when I am sitting on this chair and doing all the standard stuff that a spiritual teacher is supposed to do. When I am chastising you on doing your work, to do your work properly, then you think that I am somebody apart from the teacher. That's exactly the division that Lao Tzu is cautioning against. You would find it rather shameful to display to the world that your teacher had to pause in between and scold you because you can't manage the lights. You do not see that as inseparable and not at all differentiable from what the teacher anyway does 24 hours. Are you somewhat getting the point? Are you getting the point? Keval and Sanjay both publish these videos. Keval, the moment that happened, didn't it occur to you that this portion is to be edited out? That's what occurred to you, right? That's the best practical example. You thought that was not virtuous. Because you already know what virtue is. What is virtue? When Acharya Ji is solemnly speaking like a teacher, like the solemn and virtuous and grave and serious and holy teacher. Then he is being virtuous. How do you call him virtuous when he is acting like a complainant to the electricity department? No. You getting it?